thing you can do to save money. So, fold, thank you. Don't know if I actually selected sprayers crop protection there. I did not add the little sprayer in, because if I'm doing herbicide, the little sprayer, if I do targeted herbicide, just hit the weeds. I could go with a tiny sprayer which holds very little liquid and has a very small working width. That way you're not wasting your herbicide. If you're doing a full field spray, then the wider the better, because you get it done quicker. But if you're doing a spot treatment, then obviously a narrow sprayer with very little coverage is the better way to go. So, and we'll check both fields once we're done with both of them, I think. And I'm going to speed up time to ×5. It's the only job we've got to do today. The sheep have fed enough and watered enough. We can always add more water. Because it's not a difficult task. But yeah, well, we're pretty much done for jobs today, and it's late spring, so we're getting on to about, I guess, 8 o'clock evening. Sunset. Days will start getting longer from now onwards. But I was hoping to be mowing these 2 fields tomorrow or the day after. We just have 0 growth on them. Be interesting to see what happens to the grass along the edge of these fields, whether that gets established or not. You may need to fill the buckets again. But since we skipped going to the yard between fields, I'm going to have to go back up there anyway, so ah well. Anyway. As I suggested last week, this is probably going to be my beet harvesting tractor, which is why we've got the double twin narrows on the back. I'm a little bit worried that its current horsepower, it may be a little underpowered for the beet harvester. But I think the engine on this model goes from 180 horse in approximately 10 horsepower increments up to about 230 or 240. And we've got 190 on this one. Orgy says, welcome to the stream and happy Saturday. How is your day progressing? But yeah, so we'll use this for fertilization work and beet harvesting. So it won't be available for transporting, so I do need a second transport tractor. And we are lacking money for all of that right now, which is one of the reasons I was hoping to be mowing this field like tomorrow or the day after. Oh, we're done. Because that is our mid-year income. I have no delusion that I would have ended up with enough money to buy a sugar beet harvester without recourse to the banks, even with selling the silage. Although selling the silage does mean that I would have fertilizer for next year, free fertilizer for next year, should I say. But, we'll work on that somewhat, and we'll carry on doing contracts, A, to pay off the debt we now have, and B, to help offset the costs of the sugar beet harvester that we're going to need. We through the farm assault course. Tank selected. I'll select the front one, and hopefully we'll take it from the second row. Why not? I was hoping that would come from the front barrel, but I think that's probably enough to continue the I think it has something to do with the age of the equipment and how much you use it. Now, I was saying on one person's YouTube video this week that when the game was released, repair frequency was based on use plus how dirty your equipment was. So it was a good plan to keep your equipment clean so that it didn't get dirty. But folks figured out that, well, if I just turn off the dirt setting, then I never have to maintain my tractors. And Giant says, oh yeah, no. That's part of the game. You are going to have to repair your equipment. So typically, if you look at the top left of the speedometer, kind of where I'm pointing with the speed indicator, that green bar is maintenance. So when it gets down to about a quarter, I will usually at that point look at fixing my equipment up. And when I fix the tractor up, I'll usually check on the equipment that's attached to it, which actually that's a good point. You've just reminded me, thank you, that I forgot to stick the class Axion in for service, because that is now down to 25% of maintenance. But base game, your equipment tends to need maintenance very frequently. I'm playing with seasons, so we're looking at, what is it? I think on this playthrough we're looking at 24 days to a year. So 6 days spring, 6 days summer, 6 days fall, 6 days winter. Equipment generally doesn't get much use in the winter, as you know, for the way I play, but for the rest of the year can get a lot of usage. So, but it doesn't require maintenance every day. I mean, yeah, Seasons basically has a maintenance modifier, or a modification to the maintenance frequency, so that you don't have to maintain it as frequently. And I mean, for first usage, that can be 15 to 20 hours before you need to maintain your equipment. Whereas base game, you're probably doing it every 10 hours if you're conscientious about equipment maintenance. Now, some equipment has a maintenance factor, like weights, but there is no penalty for not maintaining your weights, because they don't get lighter just because you didn't maintain them. And that's a little close to missing, but I'm not going to be, again, not going to be too worried about that. I'm now going to follow the planting contours and just complete the field in rows. But this field already has two layers of fertilizer, so this is the third, just a big giant bonus. It looks like I did miss to plant a bit of grass back there, but oh well. I will do the left-hand side of this top end of the field, because that's not going to be a big patch, but that's just me. OCD farming can be a pain at times. So anyway, I think that was fairly straight. That was a better than average job for me. So yeah, I'll do that bit. But if it was one row of seeds, yeah, it's no big deal. Like that bit there, not worried. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to provide much in the way of extra harvestable crop. So again, I'll just, I think I did actually install GPS on this tractor. See the little dome on top. But I don't use it frequently. The only time I'm really using GPS on this is when I'm spraying herbicide on a well-established field, because then you can't see where you've been, or if I'm doing a late run of fertilizer. At this stage, yeah, I can see the field, so I can pretty much eyeball this as we go and get a fairly efficient spray coverage. But once the crops start growing, it gets more and more difficult to see where you've been, and if you want 100% coverage, then that's going to be a problem. So GPS installed so we can get around that. Same with the bigger tractors. Sometimes I'll plough, cultivate on a visual basis, and seed, but other times you just kind of look at it and say, I'm going to do this by GPS because it's going to be easier. Especially, not so much in this, I can do a 180 degree turn and without having to go backwards and forwards multiple times. But with something like the seeders, if I've got a tractor with a very bad turn radius and a very narrow seeder, then what I may end up doing is planting alternate rows. So we'll go up this row, we'll skip the next one, and we'll do the next one over coming back. So that I can just make a loop turn at the top rather than forwards and backwards multiple times in order to get it lined up with the previous row. And obviously, if you're using GPS, that makes it easier, because GPS is measuring out the rows, and skipping one or two, you're going to get an exact measurement, whereas doing it by eye, you're guessing, and then you're going to end up with a row that's 2 meters wide that you missed, and it's sort of, that's going to be a waste of seed, fertilizer, whatever. Obviously, cultivator's not a big deal. It's just the additional diesel for coverage, that partial row. But yeah, I mean, if the tractor wasn't capable of making the turn, I might make a sort of a really wide turn like this, and then come down this row here. And what I want is the bit I've missed out to be as wide as, or half a meter less wide than the equipment's working with, which is why GPS is handy for that. This tractor can easily turn around in, what is it, the 40-meter working width that this thing has. And the farmer that was close to where we used to live, somehow drifting away from where we were for the last application. There we go. The farmer that mowed a field close to where we used to live, he used to do pretty much the same thing with his balers. When he was baling, creating hay bales, he would do one windrow and then skip a row and then do the next one. That's better. Okay. How are we doing? Coming up on 3 o'clock. Game time. Sounds like Mrs. Osa is awake. Which means we could be coming up. We're coming up to about 3 hours. No, we're over 3 hours stream today, so that's a goodly length. So we may run to the end of this one, this field, skip to the end of the day and see what happens. We'll be awake up in the morning. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to turn off a couple of sections of this boom and use less fertilizer to cover this less than full row. I don't know whether the guy who's doing that script is going to release it onto Giants. Obviously it wouldn't be a script available to console, or whether he's going to keep it on one of the mod sites. But, I guess we shall see. This is going to be very close to empty by the time we end up with this one done. So yeah, there's patches there that don't look like got any fertilizer, but it's entirely possible that those patches are 100% fertilized, and already, so there's no more to add to them. Anyway, we'll get to the bottom here. Run over to that bit. As I said, I don't know whether that's already 100%. And that looks like it might already be covered. Anyway, let's check the fields, see what they look like. So they look like planted. Let's next section. So 100%. Whoops, no, this one 6 and 3, 100% covered. We're good. 5 and 16, 1 and 8 all had herbicide. This one didn't. I'm going to leave it till later in the year, closer to harvest, before I make a final decision on whether I'm going to spray that field or not. I may do as I said, spot treatment rather than spray the whole field, especially if we get to last growth stage. But for right now, we'll let the weeds do their weedy thing and figure everything else out later. Jump out. Anyway, so what was I going to look at contract, see what's going on. So there's a transporting contract, yeah, there's another, ooh, that's quite well paying. And still field 9 they want baled, and field 27 wants to be fertilised. Well, we don't have enough fertiliser in the tank right now, so we're just going to drive back to the farm. And call it a day, I think. Oh, we're going to check, yeah. We'll get the class out, we'll stick that in the workshop overnight. Because while I remember that, it's something I should probably do now. The last thing I need is, okay, we'll pull it out in the fall, stick it on a plough, be out ploughing the fields, and then say, oh, we need to fix this thing. Okay, I'll put this in the shed. And maybe if that contract is still available tomorrow game day, we'll go out and do it and get some money. But, for right now, that can just sit there. How are we doing with wool? What's that? Between 50 and 75. Let's take a chainsaw to it. 732. So yeah, 18 litres off of 75%. So we will jump in the Lindner. Should probably run a front weight when I'm doing this, but yeah. All the wheels are on the ground, so that's fine for now. That way. I think in general this is not a popular tractor for most people playing farm sim. Primarily because it comes with normal wheels only, so you can't put row crop tyres to protect crops while you're fertilising or whatever. It's a little bit light. It's sufficient for picking up bales, but it's 4-wheel steer, so it makes it much easier to maneuver this equipment around the farm. Unfortunately, some of the equipment we're using is very heavy, and so this doesn't work well with the heavier equipment either. We're still having challenges, but I want to turn that way. Yeah. That's better. But generally everything I put in this shed is light enough for this tractor to maneuver around. So we're good. The other option would be to go for a JCB 4200 fast track, which is also four-wheel steer. And a little bit heavier, so you can lift heavier stuff, I guess. Okay, so that's done, that's away. Sheep did not need food. No. We kind of do need water, so we'll take a look at that. And we'll run down the list of sheeps. I think the breeding season is done for the year. Yeah, so 179 sheep. Next year we can keep them all in the same field. The year after we are going to need to buy an overflow field during the year so that there is room to store the growth in each field that we have sheep. So the Lindner home and safe. Okay,